all the willing ones to join the crowd. The downsizing crowd, it's a great event, and it's very cool that in Ukraine we have such events of the scale. It's great respect to projector. So all my preferences are with you. All the likes, all the stars. So it's a cool conference. Let's greet them with a round of applause. I suppose they deserve it. And thank you very much. That's you. You create the conference. You are the mate of this conference. It wasn't commercial. It was coming from the heart. So still downloading. As you can see, Apple, like with the keynote presentations, you can still use, with the permission of Apple, the icons. You know about this prohibition for Apple apps. You cannot use their icons. So this is your last chance to use and abuse their icons without their specific permission. Thank you. So, I'm Olga Bilous. Believe it or not, but I am from EVA group. My area is mobility. I can tell you about this. This is Prom Marketplace, all sorts. That's the background. Services, products, whatever. And Kabanchik is service marketplace. Prom craft prohibit Shafa C2C purchases, procurements, and there are many products mobilized, some of them, and we develop the apps, and this is quite respectable and convincing. 50% of the user population, some have the share and the earnings of the company, and there you can use many interesting toolkits, and we can spend more resources, attract more attention. This is not about it. Let's think about mobility, mobile commerce, and what it is, and where we get this name from. There was Kevin Duffy in 1997. There was the e-commerce forum. He created this term, they coined the word. You can actually have a pocket shop for the user. E-commerce available without any wires, with the enormous mobility of 20 years later. The mobile devices are available for 66% of the people. 1/3 of e-commerce is already mobile in the world. The POS transactions in the emerging countries with deep penetration of mobile internet and the devices. Retailers who have the app, they very often have 55% transactions through this app. And here are the figures for the world. Now about Ukraine. Ukraine, we have our own achievements, 58 million the connections. In 2017, through mobile devices, 26% of penetration 3G, and smartphones 53%. Something to go on. To feed on, and some people say that apps are usually limited constraints, and all the mobile environment is constrained, limited. It's in the box. No, there are no such limits. Very often it's even better. it's different. Why different? Because many processes take place in a different way. In this environment, with this kind of population, I'll use retail and commerce because my experience is chiefly there. So creating context for the app is in 2 clicks, because you should not make pictures and then download, reload. You can make a picture and your app can read anything that is in the image and fill in the fields, and you just click OK. That's your product. For example, for C2C projects, that's the metrics and product presentation. You should shouldn't go to any presentation. Get the table and try it, and then bring it back with the AR. You can see any kind of apps from the retailers and see your table in your interior, or the glasses, the spectacles on you. And there are many features of that kind, and that's your UX, and that's how you feel the process, the content transfer. And there are no limitations with the traditional vanilla ways. You can do it through Adobe transfer the media, the contacts, the details, the money, the cash. You can just put together two handsets. Any flow can be optimized. Any flow, any process can be optimized in an unbelievable way. Product creation, the filling in the fields, the transactions, and all the means and the technologies that are used. With the native apps, they are available now. You just have to look into the opportunities, think of any combination that is a great solution for your specific product or for enhancement of your product. And this is a wow factor. This is a wow thing. The visual desktop vibe thing, you have to download an image and recognize it, read it, scan it. With the new native apps, you can be in the street, so you can aim at the trainers, see that it's Nike, the best price, and you solve a problem within 3 seconds. The retailer, you can solve this problem for your customer. This is also a wow effect. Visual search and geoservices also do many beautiful things. Change behavioral patterns, icons. For example, you pass some shop of your retailer and you get the notification that there's a sale or a discount for your favorite product. This is a relevant thing at this point and this point, with the GPS and USDK and so forth. And that is what makes our lives easier. Other carriers on the information, our cameras, the apps, handset apps, QR codes, barcodes, and you can see the Asian application, AR readers, and so on, and all the things, the carriers, the devices, the software that can change our experience better, in a different way, more productive, real-time access. This is the unquestionable thing that is not available with desktops and webs. This is access 24 hours a day, 24/7, 365. This is not using a device. have handsets on their bedside table, and they can do it at any point. The more relevant the information, the more to the point it is, the cooler your feedback is. And this is one of the functions that is absolutely different in terms of UX. And additional opportunities are the compasses, accelerometers that can diversify the toolkit that you use for your apps and develop for your apps. These are the arguments. They are enough for you to understand that it's different, it's not less. So different and more. So here is the checklist that I designed for the accessible apps, and you can read about it at leisure. And they use mostly, in the majority of cases, Echo, but Android is much more accessible because it's more open than Apple. So you have to be careful reading and combining that in your products. That's cool, but there are also numbers. Numbers are good at showing us how we can translate value into profit. Speaking of indicators, mobile apps versus mobile web, and we can see in our project that average revenue per user is by 13 times high. Retention of the 30th day. This is how they come back, and you can see the figures, and conversion is 2 times higher. iOS and versus Android, and it's not all that rosy, and this is not a panacea, this is not a magic pill. There are certain nuances. This is the dire reality in these environments. This is the outflow, and these people have bright lives but short lives as users with us. So product developers, UX designers, UI designers, they should use different methods to retain the clientele, the users, and we should not lose them with this kind of speed. So remember the figure at our last slide. You can see that this reality should be broken down. Why in the first month 80% of users leave us because some part will never open your apps once after installing them. Some of them after that, the best case scenario, will never come back after the first landing, and then routinely they will just be falling out. So UX, what can you operate, which indicators to understand where you can, in an operational way, to heal it. There's the first day retention. That's when your user, after the installment, comes back to the app next day. If this indicator is low or lower than adequate in your terms, that's the first signal that it is not embraced. UX and UI, there are some fundamental problems or fundamental mismatches, and they cannot tolerate that, they don't like it. And even before you start digging with other problems, you can start with the first one. You have to reconsider the wrong things. Good news, there is a good news. Number one, UX can measure interplay, the interface, and the levers of growth inside the product. And another very important advantage of the app, they provide it as a new platform, different platform, and as a smaller company, as a smaller product with great UX, great apps features, and so forth, you can start competing with great big retailers immediately, because With the apps, you can do that. That's the environment for you. It's not all that great, and you have to reconsider many things. You can look at it differently, especially if you design your web in a serious fashion. Many patterns, many habits should be reconsidered. But this is not dangerous. There are fundamental things about the user's expectations. Let's talk about that. We have not much space on the handset. The handset's getting bigger in terms of memory, but unstable connection, 3G, but it is not stable. It's never stable in terms of attention. This is some kind of interruption at the point of interaction, and UX specialists should understand the most important things in marketing. There are 4 P's. There are 3S: speed, safety, support. You have to understand speed, security, support, and by default they have the high expectations and the very little patience with you in terms of some kind of problems. And the functions, you have to add more than you have at the web, and some opportunities. Not just about clicking at the link. On the link, you go to the store, you download, you have some painstaking experience. It's a device that is expensive, and the most personalized thing is the screen, and you have to meet the expectations mentally, morally, and so forth with the quality of your product or the added value that you offer. So the minimal value of product, this is something that we have for the web, and the minimum for viability of the model you test, and whether it flies or doesn't. And we can take into account the factor you should not cut off the fundamental thing. You should not limit the functions that are core values for the user. The functionality should not be cut on. Like with the visualization, from every level you cut just a little bit so that you can retain 20% of the functions for 80% of the users, and that is done in a good way. So, speaking of attention patterns for the web, you can see in the same way we can see in the Google the distribution for the mobile devices, and that's the set of our products. And an interesting observation to your left, the left hand slide is interface of the start screen. So the orange points, that's the navigation for the product range. Search, click, menu, click, and then on the categories at the bottom, and you can see how users look for the interesting things for them, things that they look for or have an urge for. And that's to the right hand picture. That's the click distribution, the listings. You have the range of products in listings. This is clickability and the listing, and you can this subsiding trades you can see going down where we see it, and where we have the update to 15.195. That's the dashboard. This is another range of products. So it's a subsiding attention with a new pack of products. It's revived, and you have to study it again. And what specifically can be taken into account or should be for your products? That's the operational systems. The most popular we use, ones that we use, have their own specific characteristics. And so, if you see how users interact with the interfaces of the same app, they are mostly identical. The operational system, the guidelines of the operational system, by default, iOS has more engagement, better retention, high interest. With Android, it subsides much quicker, and it is very difficult to retain and to get engaged. The way they navigate, we can see how users of the system navigate our promos, and Android's 50/50. They use categories and search, and in iOS they use more search. We had A/B tests. We pre-open, after open, but with Android we had prior presentation. The pattern increased 2.5% of the clickability of the, but by 3.5% the business indicators went down. So we actually abandoned this version. So this is a case study, one of the many, a hypothesis for your tests or experimenting with your products, but that is not the same as applying the indicators for your product. So iOS and Android, how different they are. Another graph, purchases. It's not what they looked for, and you can see their personas, their profiles, same products, same users, same product range for the portal, but it's effeminate for iOS and masculine for Android. You can see that in February people are getting for the Saint Valentine's Day, so called, and there are also UX challenges, and the thing is this: it is the available toolkit and understanding, in-depth understanding of human psychology and cognitive ability, this engagement, activation, and retention. The comeback is a marketing things, but the first three things can be influenced by us. We can play with it, and there should be a habit to come back. You can form this habit. Why should it be formed? Have you read this book about Nir Yale? Hooked. So Hook. There's this. Neil has a 3-week course at Stanford. I have 5 minutes for this Hook course. So that's the concept. The bottom line from me: to form a habit. To form this loop, you need a trigger. 4 things. Number 1, trigger to activate. The first activator can be external, internal. The external ones, it's inside the trigger, a button, buy, a call, wake up call if you, and internal, some emotions, and that leads to not an instantaneous but subsequent thing. I have a handset, it can ring or not ring. There is a bubble, there isn't a bubble. These are the triggers. This is the interface, and then action follows. Action consists of this beautiful model Mr. Fogg invented it. This action uh, takes place when there are three factors coinciding: motivation, opportunity, an easy opportunity, a smooth opportunity, and the trigger itself. We can see this model: the higher the motivation, the more probabilities, the lower the lower the opportunity, the threshold, the probability is high if it's easier. The high quality trigger can also trigger an opportunity. And I have my handset, I call you, you call me, and you have this trigger. It's ringing, it's vibrating, you cannot ignore, but you don't want to talk to me. There's no motivation to talk to me, there's no action. If it's on silent mode, there's no trigger, and so on and so forth. So in fact, it's an important thing. Then the reward, and the rewards that we can imagine, they stimulate the same receptors, the stress desire to own. It's not about pleasure, it's about craving. It's luxury, sex, some chemical, recreational drugs, bad food, things that raise such impulses and stimulate the respective receptors. And the unpredictability of the result, the more unpredictable it is, the more you want to use it again. And there are types of rewards. So they are all based on archetypal things. Mitochondrial things. This is tribe, hunt, personality first, the social rewards, tribal rewards, your interaction and interoperation with the outer world, the opinion of the people who are important. This is pleasure, empathy, partnership, cooperation. And the second thing is hunt. It used to be hunting for food, now it's hunting for cash. But this kind of reward or positive reinforcement is very well visualized in feed off. There's feed off. You scroll something, you dig it up, and this mechanism of feed is based on this hunt reward. It's the same as people were looking for some food, gathering some things for food, and it's the same thing. Personal. This is not about tribal. It's not about harm. This is a conclusion. This is control, mastering. You want to check in all the boxes, and you're in control. There is this finality, and there is the completeness in it. When you get the rewards, you have to invest something. Invest into the future rewards. It can be some kind of data that you leave with them, reputation. Speaking of examples, you can, for example, you can generate a lot of data, a lot of content, have 1 million of followers, and it is difficult for you to leave or have a community reputation. The same effect, basically. Why is it important for business? Because for business it's always a better retention. It's something that's it's innate habit. You are not that sensitive to the price or to some faults of your product. And the higher the loyalty, the more the retention, and the higher the probability you will be advised to someone, or someone would be referred to you through the warm circle. And the toolkit that you use for the 3 stages minimize the cognitive load. We talk about things for logination. For us, we do this autologination. You buy and you promote through checkouts. Automatically the account is created. You are logged in, and we actually remove the barrier that can be a barrier, an impediment for the project. Social organization, pressing on the button instead of 50 fields, filling in the boxes and so forth. And it's great for the market specialists, and then with that data they can bring back the users or have some manipulations with this information. And the smart lock for Android, we decided to use smart lock, and that's the distribution that we got. We can see clearly that for Android users, 50% of the cases they're looking through the Google button. The iOS it's a bit different, and the elementary thing is that even the operation systems are different, but in the interface you can rearrange the buttons and streamline the experience for the users. The smart lock, it's small in size at this point. It was launched recently even with us, but it shows that the number of orders is climbing through the roof, and you can see that the users are more sophisticated. They look at as trendsetters, and the process is great for them and more convenient, more conventional for this kind of population. So minimizing the cognitive load, the downside is checkout, logging and checkout, and there you lose many people. In this case, one-click purchase at Amazon, but we can see that it's better to use two options if you have no other call to action. So because we first one-click purchases the project, and we then understood that that was a constraint. They cannot buy more than one product. There's a multi-basket, and we can have additionally 20% for the basket people, people who would add more than two products, and the sales increased by 9%. What else can we do for the mobile apps? That's the keys. You can click to the other keys, but this is low experience of use and usage of the device, the relevant fields, and by 11% you can increase the conversion in your whirlpool. What is also important with the downside of this checkout, we can fill in the fields and all the information that you get about the information, and inclusive all the data. It's better to do it standing in for the user, because it's unstable. One click is difficult for Ukraine. MasterCard is here with the technologies, and for the Ukrainian projects you can have a one-click checkout, and the auto correction, and in a checkout and information, names of the street, something that is not corrected in a good way, and that is painstaking for the user, for the UX, because you have to redo it. And if you have this need to introduce additional fields, you have to streamline the navigation. Now about the auto-filling out, and this is one of the benefits. I have to actually wrap up engagement and activation. The silent screen, you form 30 to 40% of the top level categories, or the content that is precious to you or important should be there, because users can immediately see on the first screen your opportunities, or the checklist at least. And the burnout for banners. You design banners. Do you know about the burnout? And we measured it's fortnight, 2 weeks. So if you use them every 2 weeks, so the clickability is much higher. And also we check the response to specific suggestions, offers, free delivery, sales, discount. Free delivery is best in terms of life cycle and business response. And the perception patterns, peculiarities, the techniques that I teach. This is the tip of the iceberg. This is the toolkit for the subconsciousness. The three brains, yours and of your users. The reptile that was formed 200 million years ago. You cannot get rid of it. That's your subconsciousness. This is your autopilot, and is driving you into a certain decision. The mammal brain is 50 million years old. It's more mature. It's also different. This is emotions, neuromediators, and the rationale. The rational 1 million-year-old. Once when people say that all people are rational, they make rational decisions, but it's 1 million versus 200 million. There are nuances there. The energy consumption for the three brains. You see that the reptile one takes up 10% and 60% of our everyday tasks. The mammal, emotional, 30%. 30% of the task rational. It's the most capable, most energy consuming, but it's responsible for only 10%. So when you say that people are rational, you come back to the slide and can look at it again. So now I'm running away. 80% of the users by default use the preset settings, some kind of a network. For our project, 8% of the people use this preset kind of network. They had the switch, but they used it very little. So we had A/B tests, the conversion network, and there was a beautiful experiment from our colleagues. They went further with the breakdown by categories. In each category, they checked the network, and the best one that was set by default for craft with a handmade. Small, beautiful icons. The Instagram format works better there. So please test. Please do. It's plus 6% of CR. Why not? Not on the radar. If things that are not on the radar are used less. So call to action should be fixed for your business. The better probability by 8% in our case with the conversion. And the problem of choice. You remember this donkey who died, this dilemma between two oats buckets, and you have to choose. How to choose should be relevant. Micro triggers, everything that we use last time using the previous slides what can influence the audience, and if you discuss it. Recently we had this very interesting study that a company had 6,700 A/B tests, and 5 key things were discovered, triggers or elements that can change the KPI. The deficiency of product, limit access to the product, that what other people want, the abandoned baskets. You can read it, it's a beautiful feature, meaning article. We partially managed it with a similar indicators, sometimes high, and we can say that is because we were measuring it in the app, and the site was telling us about the website. And here you can see that there are many projects that do not hide the not anymore available products. The interface, I worked for this app once upon a time, and when you can see the things that were great but they're not available anymore, the motivation actually increases. But at 6 a.m. it's difficult to motivate yourself, so I added this great instrument. This is the wake up call. You subscribe for an action, and you get an wake up all 5 minutes prior to the actual so that was a kill feature. People wanted to make it available on the web, but we didn't. And the triggers and all the triggers, we can see the anchors and the consciousness, the dark patterns, the light patterns. The dark patterns work better and they're more intensive, activating receptors of your brain, but in fact it's about ethics and manipulation. It's your business strategy. And inspiration time, if you want to see some apps to be inspired, how can you do impossible things? How can you reformat, reset your content? The state-of-the-art technologies are recommended. The beauty of this content, the design, the composition. This is from Intro, the marketplace project from India, Flipkart, the first two strongly recommended one, Asia. However strange it might sound, it's a total different culture, different tastes and patterns, but here you can inspire people and what can be squeezed into an app with the diversity of triggers, state-of-the-art technologies being used, and in addition to that, how we can design that. Speaking of dark patterns, light patterns deliver security, exclusivity for the app, or extra bonuses using the code. That's something taken care of you with some positive reinforcement and benefits. Speaking of the dark ones, it's booking that they use it, putting pressure with all the possible ways, and they use gamification. This is the wheel at the center. This is a lottery, and you don't want what will be the discount for you, the unexpected result, and you want to play and come back to this game. And this discount is given for a limited time, 1 hour, for example. If you don't do anything within that hour, or put it in the basket and don't buy, you say your time is up, it has expired. But if you put it to another basket, there are many tricks. This is the Wish C2C American app, and you can see and feel the gamification and lots of inspiration. Asia is inspirational. This is Asia, as I discussed it. They like bright colors, contrasts, and everything. Well, this is a bit of kitsch, but the interface is like this, and that's what you put into your bowler with interesting things. That's the melting pot. Now, speaking of the key things, wrapping up the tips for UXs in M-commerce. This is the patterns are difficult to create. You have to wrap it in the old things, the swipe and tests actually give conclusive evidence. You automate the interaction for the environment, and you create it so the understanding that there can be an interruption in your interaction. They should come back or be hooked back. Some abandoned payment, they can come back to their office and conclude that in the office, or the interrupted payment. The skeleton screen spinners and some other elements, the zero state, the network is down or something. What happened, what should be done, how people can correct that, rectify that. The micro animation, it should be a functional element, not just in addition to micro animation, the status of the system's visual response. If you press the button, it should be temporary progress of some kind, demonstrable, and you have to cut down, because switching from web to app, copywriting has this desire to give all the background text, but the space is limited in a mobile app, so it should be concise and informative. Now that's it. That's shortly about the trends 28 chats, voice search via IM bots, integration on one-click payments, and the anticipation. Thank you very much. I hope that I haven't taken up too much of extra time. Just 15 minutes. Couple of questions. Are there any? You can answer your own questions. Sasha? Thank you. I have a question. What do you use for analysis? Fabric, Google Analytics, and Spark. And Spark accumulates all that. I'm talking Firebase and Google Analytics, and because if we want to do in-depth cross-cutting on so Android and iOS, and Firebase it's different. So sorry, and the usability, A/B tests and usability testing separately. Each operational system and the functionalities are tested separately. Sasha, Loom Company. You said that you log in your users automatically. Just for the Ukraine markets, and how would you solve the personal data protection things? Everything is packed. You have one contract for everything, and they also wrap all the additional under this login, and you log in them when they come to it for the second time. If they want to do it, we shouldn't scare them off. That's because, in fact, we had some cases when it wasn't clear what the flows that that tell them that you have this automatic login. The letters are not read specifically, so they wanted to understand why they had this login, not the ones they prefer. So you should use the things to, so this the auto login, you should tell them somehow. They should be aware that they have a new password and so forth.
Давайте уже подойдем к Оле
So
на перерыве
let's,
прямо сейчас. Вот.